Hey guys, welcome to question FM398 of the Further Maths Fortify study guide. So this question reads, Colton is training for a triathlon. He is already a well-practiced cyclist, however his running and swimming require some improvement. Let X be the number of kilometers Colton runs each week, and let Y be the number of kilometers Colton swims each week. Colton's training program dictates that he must run at least 20 kilometers each week, swim and run at least 22 kilometers each week, swim and run no more than 34 kilometers each week. This information can be represented by inequalities 1, 2, and 3 with respect. So run at least 20 kilometers each week, a combined effort of at least 22 kilometers each week, but we don't want to exceed a combined effort of 34 kilometers each week. There is another constraint given by inequality 4, and that is 7y less than or equal to 3x. Question A wants us to describe the inequality 4, in terms of the training Colton must perform. So what we're looking at here is this 7y less than or equal to 3x. Now, these are some of the more confusing inequalities because it's not as clean cut as something like this, where you can see that the running plus swimming each week should be greater than or equal to 22. This is a little bit more confusing because we've got multipliers on each side, which can make things a little bit more tricky, but I'll show you a way that I sometimes tackle inequalities like this, and maybe it'll work for you. So the first thing you'll notice is that if I were to take these multipliers, and there's 3 here and there's 7 here, to make these two sides equal, I would have to make y 3 and x 7. Now we know that y represents the swimming and x represents the running. So from looking at this, what we can see is that the 3 kilometers of swimming, so that 3 needs to be less than or equal to the 7 kilometers of running, which tells us that the 3 kilometers of swimming is okay when compared with 7 kilometers worth of running. But we couldn't have 4 kilometers of swimming for 7 kilometers of running, because then this wouldn't be less than this side anymore. As it stands, 7 times 3 is 21, and 3 times 7 is also 21. So that satisfies the equal part of this. If we were to increase this 3 to a 4, that would make this side 28, and that wouldn't be less than the 21 on the right. So what happens if we go the other way? What if our swimming was 2 kilometers? Well, 7 times 2 kilometers of swimming would be also okay, because that would be less than, or the 14 on this side would be less than the 21 over on this side. So we could say something along the lines of, so Colton must do no more than 3 kilometers of swimming for every 7 kilometers of running he does. So since the 3 can't exceed the 7, he might do 7 kilometers of running and then do 3 kilometers of swimming. But according to these constraints, he must do no more than 3 kilometers of swimming. If he wants to do more swimming, he's got to do more running. All right. Given a little bit more information, which says that the graph below shows the lines that represents the boundaries of inequalities 1 to 4, and we're given a graph that looks like this one. I haven't put the values on the axes, but you guys have your books there so you can follow along nice and easily. So this is part B. I might even just put a little B, maybe just here to keep us remembering. It says, on the graph below, shade the region that contains the points that satisfy these inequalities. So we'll take it step by step. Inequality 1 says that x must be greater than or equal to 20. So the line of x equals 20 would be this line here. Since x must be greater than that line, it means that the value is only satisfied, the constraint is only satisfied if x is on this side of that line. So immediately we've gotten rid of this side here. We know that we're going to be shading in somewhere around here. We'll move on to the next constraint. X plus y is greater than or equal to 22. By the way, guys, if you're struggling with questions like these, plotting them on your CAS calculator works really well. Otherwise, there's a website called desmos.com that also has a really good function for putting in inequalities and sort of seeing them more visually. So x plus y equals 22. Well, we've got two lines that are quite similar. We've got x plus y equals 22 and x plus y equals 34. I'm saying equals because that's how the lines will show up. I know we're working with inequalities, but we'll start with the line and then sort of transition to the inequality. So x plus y equals 22. Well, we assume that since we're comparing between 22 and 34, this line here is going to be the 22, and this parallel line here is going to be the 34. So because x plus y must be greater than or equal to 22, well, if we look at this line here, which is the equals 22 line, if x and y must be greater than that 22, well, in order for y to be greater than, it needs to be above the line, which puts it sort of in this side up, not this side down. And the same with x. X must be on the right-hand side of the line. So it's always going to be wanting to sort of be on this side of the line, which is the same area that y wants to be, being greater than. So we now know that within this boundary, we're not looking below this line down here. Our next one, x plus y must be less than or equal to 34. Well, this now tells us that if this is x plus y equals 34, in order to be less than, we need to be below the line and left of the line. So we now know that we've been left with either this little triangle in here or this slightly odd quadrilateral that we've got over here. So from there, we've got 7y must be less than or equal to 3x. So if we divide both sides by 3, essentially what we've got is 7 over 3. Y must be less than or equal to x, which tells us that we're actually, well, that's this line here that we're describing, and we must be below it. Our y value must be less than. So this is our shaded region in there. Bit of a tricky one, guys, but do some experimenting with your calculators or that Desmos website, and inequalities should start to present themselves to you over time, but it's by no means something that most people just look at for the first time and instantly understand. For most of you, there'll be a good deal of experimentation involved in actually gaining your own, a proper understanding. So that would be part B. C then asked us to determine the maximum number of meters that Colton can swim each week. Alrighty, so going back to our sort of feasible region here, what you might notice is that y represents swimming, and we want to figure out the maximum number of meters that Colton can swim each week. So having a look at our graph here, that should occur right here at this intersection. Reason being that this is the highest y coordinate value that we're going to get, which means it should give us the maximum number of meters that he can swim each week if he's to stay within these constraints. So we've got two lines at play here. The first line is the line of x plus y equals 34. And the second line we've got is 7y is equal to 3x. So if we're going to rearrange these lines to make y the subject, we will get y equals negative x plus 34. And we could get y equals 3 over 7x. The reason I've done this is because now we can actually sort of start finding our coordinates here for this point of intersection. So the way we do that is by making y equal to y. So we can have 3 over 7x is equal to negative x plus 34. Now you can use your CAS calculators to figure out the value of x, or you can do it by hand. Either way, you should end up with an answer of x equals 23.8. Now, a couple of things. You don't want to get to this point here and immediately write down 23.8 kilometers, because first of all, the question wants its answer in meters, but even if you wrote 23,800 meters, you would still be incorrect because x is telling us the maximum number of kilometers that, well, sorry, X is telling us how many kilometers he can run, and this wouldn't even be the maximum number of kilometers that you could run. So we're going to take this value, this 23.8, because it's actually the X ordinate of our coordinate here. And what we want is the Y ordinate. So we're going to substitute this 23.8 back into one of our equations. I'm going to pick the X plus Y equals 34, just because it's a little bit simpler to follow. So X plus Y equals 34. I'll even just separate these to make it obvious. 23.8 plus Y equals 34. And simplifying that, we should get Y equals 10.2. Now, just to clarify, that's 10.2 kilometers, which means that our final answer should be 10,200 meters. If you guys have any questions about that, please leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.